All right. Okay. Can anyone recite the golden stairs, please?
You mean like say it out loud?
Yeah.
I would love to.
Okay, very good.
Golden stairs, a clean life, an open mind, a pure heart, an eager intellect, an unwielded spiritual perception, a brotherliness for one's co-disciple, a readiness to give and receive advice and instruction, a loyal duty, a loyal sense of duty to the teacher, a willing obedience to behest of truth, a courageous endurance of personal injustice, a brave declaration of principles, a valiant defense of those who are unjustly attacked, and a constant eye to the ideal of human progression and the perfection which the secret science depicts. These are the golden stairs up the steps of which the learner may climb to the temple of divine wisdom.
Mm, thank you, Medicaid. Okay, let's continue. Where were we? Ah, here. Okay, we can go for this paragraph. Does anyone want to read this out?
Sure, I can read it.
All right, thank you, Chris.
This first phrase has another implication that is important to a theosophical view of life. To be clean is to be free of foreign accretions, of all the contaminants that cling to us and spoil our native purity. Goodness is not a foreign way of behaving that we must painfully learn. It is not like makeup that we must apply to cover over a flawed complexion. It is rather what is natural in us when we have washed away the accumulated dirt that hides it. All nature is fundamentally good, and human nature is so too. In The Voice of Silence, H.P. Blavatsky says that the mind is like a mirror. It gathers dust while it reflects. The task we have is to clean off the dust that covers the mirror, to let it reflect the sun perfectly.
Mm, thank you, Chris. This is a wonderful paragraph. Right, the first phrase has another implication that is important to the theosophical view of life. To be clean is to be free of foreign accretions. So I've my English is not so good. Does anyone know what accretion means?
Accumulations.
Accumulations?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Let me search as well, huh? Accretions. Accumulation, additional layers of matter. So it's like dirt or any other stuff, right? Gradual layers, gradual accumulation of additional layers or metals. So here comes the question. Right, so here, to be clean is to be free of foreign accretions. What would it mean by foreign accretions in this context?
Maybe there's not foreign, maybe there's like a homeland creations that you kind of create yourself. I don't know. But also, I think what it really meant by looking the last sentence is like, how can I say that the master is the one who can perfectly show the light, and we can only show the light like that comes how can I say, that are able to escape this foregain accelerations that have accumulated on us. But let's say, like, if we have a child and it meets another child, he becomes a friend instantly. It doesn't think about what is their name or their statue or color or status or any. It's just another beautiful living creature. And this is like something without this foregain accretion, I think. But turning to life, we learn some things to had, and that is not really fair. If I'm in another circumstances, grow up in another place, I will have different kind of this foregain creations, or yeah. So to have this that our mirror will mirror it the sun perfectly. I think, and that's where we have to, get rid of all this kind of dust, or then it means like you have to go back to this childlike, not like childish, but childlike state of like innocent in that sense, I think.
Mm. Thank you, Mary Kay. Anyone else?
I'd say that it's perhaps the external impressions that sort of drive our faculties, essentially what Mary Kay was trying to say, but it's it's just external impressions that we pick up, from things that we are exposed to, and that's how it creates our biases and all and stuff like that. Yeah.
Wait. Oh, okay. Thank you, Kieran. Wait. Can anyone see my screen? Is it still there?
Yes.
How come Leaf and Ben can't see it? Maybe you have. Are you on the phone or something? You might have to scroll, right? Left or right? Is that Manvi? Is that Manvi beside Mary Kay? Okay, that's fine. Okay, so here I have a question as well, right? On top of this, like all what you have said, like you mentioned that all these accretions are gathered during life, right? And as we were born, most of the time, most of us, or at least all of us, okay, I could assume, are pretty pure, so to speak, right? So why would anyone? Okay, so the question is why everyone will accumulate different kinds of things, right? Right, some people go for some vices. You can say that the surroundings and things like that could be different, right? You'll be born in different countries, right? And you'll be meeting different people. But the thing is, you will never get to accumulate from every single person that you will meet, right? There will be some kind of discernment. You'll only pick up some things that you feel that could be important to you at that time of your life. Why would there be such a difference?
I think
Scientific explanation. Sorry. Go on, Mary Kay.
it's just very quickly. I was thinking about. By the way, this is Tisha. Hello, a young theosophist.
Mm,
Yes. So I'm thinking about twins. You have twins, the same upcoming, the same kind of education, parents, and so on, and yet one becomes in one way, and the other starts thinking the other way in the end of the. So where does it come from? It's not only what is around us. It must have like that. I don't know, the previous lives, incarnations, yes, that we have some experiences that the father is drinking, so one starts also drinking because my father did. The other one is not taking any alcohol because my father took alcohol, like the same thing but different reaction to it. So I think it's the character we have built before And what we face in this life is, and what decisions we are making, like, will we go on with the easy path that we have stepped before, or will we go, although it is easier for me in these circumstances to go this path, but I will make effort to do another path, what I consider is important and right. Like I think this is it.
Thank you, Marike. Kiran.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that a lot of times we say things like kids are, impressionable. And why is that? From a pure scientific perspective, it is because of the lack, or maybe, the prefrontal cortex not yet fully formed in kids, and there are pros and cons to it. So whatever they get exposed to, they might hold on to their impressions by the time their brain fully develops, and with time, of course, their personality gets consolidated, and they can for themselves choose what is appropriate and not. Even if you talk of identical twins, yes, broadly speaking, they get more or less the same impression when they are being raised, but it's not that they are constantly consuming the same sort of things all the time. Like, of course, they are in the same household, but they can still consume different sorts of things, and that can shape their personalities as well. So our biases are formed because of what we get exposed to earlier in life. Our sense of right and wrong comes from there as well. In one culture, to do something is normal, whereas in other culture is seen as a sin. So where does that sense of judgment come from? And it's all coming from this conditioning that we go through. And given that our prefrontal cortex takes time to fully form, it does influence our worldview.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it. Thank you, Kiran. Chris.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly, but the way I understand it is that why do we need to accumulate the accretions, right? In general. So, my understanding from my study of theosophy, according to Jeffrey Hudson, I'm talking here more of from a more cosmic to individual scale. Jeffrey Hudson compares this in basic theosophy. The monad is like the seed, and then the logos is like the oak tree. So it's the destiny of the monad to grow and become an oak tree. But for the seed to become an oak tree, it has to be planted in soil. It has to be watered, it has to take root, it has to grow slowly and painfully until it becomes an oak tree. So similarly, the monad, which is the divine spark within us, which is pure divinity, it has to be buried under layers and layers of matter, from the mental layer to the emotional layer to the etheric plane to the physical. And then once it reaches a certain point, it begins to take root, and then it begins to be able to master the accretions. And then once it's able to master the accretions, it can then remove them if it doesn't need it anymore, or it can use them for service the if that is what the situation calls out for. So my understanding is that everything has a particular time and place. So there's a cycle for involution, there's a particular time for evolution. So the monad has to undergo all of it. And at a certain point, the monad will be overwhelmed by these accretions, but eventually they'll be able to master the accretions and they'll be able to be free from it.
Wow. That's a really good one, Chris. Thank you. Anyone else? I think this is there anyone? Medicaid? Oh no, okay. I think like what Kieran and Chris has mentioned is something very interesting, right? For myself, when I think about why we have to take in what we have to take in order to become who we are right now, right? And especially like I think it deals a lot with how we would think about our past, right? A lot of us, I'm assuming, right, that we want some kind of self-transformation or spiritual transformation for ourselves because we feel that it is not functionally sound, right? And some of us might take it that because of our upbringing, because of the limitation of the society or culture, and of course, the influence of the people that we met in our lives, right? There could be quite a bit of negative emotions or associations with this, right? We can get some kind of probably resentment, right? Frustrations, at least for myself, right? When I actually start to think about why am I like this, like the way I am, and I want to grow out of it, right? I want to transcend who I am. And working through all my past, my tendencies, things that I'm attached to. And I didn't really think of that. I just think that why would humans or humans would have to take in all these conditionings in order to grow, right? As what Chris mentioned, right? Like the seed has to go into the ground, right? Over all the layers of gravels, of soil and earth. And it feels like the only way of growing or experiencing life, growing through experiencing life, is to really get your hands dirty, right? I think the concept of involution and evolution is quite a sound one, right? Where uh the divine goes down and manifests itself in the denser and denser planes, right? From the spiritual to the denser planes to the densest one, the physical plane. And physically speaking, based on our biology, right, the prefrontal cortex is not developed, and that enables the absorption of the experiences and absorption of experiences in our surrounding. I think this is really mind blowing for myself. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah, I think it's not just psychological, right? It could be physical and philosophically aligned, right? I think this is good. Thank you so much. I learned it's quite a mind blowing one, right? So for the next slide here, of all the contaminants that cling to us and spoil our native purity, why would all these contaminants cling to us? But if it's just like stuff we accumulate, right? Why would it cling to us? Why can't we just shake it off easily?
That's an interesting idea that they cling to us. I think it's more like we are clinging to them. And it's like karma that in the future we will also like see similar situations where we continue cling to them. Yeah, I think it's mutual, because if in some situations you cling, then you will face in the future similar situations until you have learned the lesson to not cling. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you. No.
I think that's when I say all of the contaminants that cling to us, it rings a bell about the permanent atom. I'm not sure if you guys remember that one. So on each plane, we have like a permanent atom of each plane, which will attract the same atoms of the same plane. So let's say if we are born every single life with a set of skandhas or a set of karma, which means that our virtues, like some is strong, some is not so strong. We have a kind of like a frequency, like a unique frequency to ourselves. So when we are reborn, all the tendencies, all the strengths, the weaknesses will somehow be attracted to us. If that makes sense. Yeah, I think I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like from the permanent atom on the astral plane, it will, attract the same substance, the same atom on the same plane. For us, it's the same. Our causal body will attract the same thing, the same tendencies, the strengths, the weaknesses that we haven't really perfected it.
Thank you, Leo. Chris?
One esoteric writer, Alice Bailey, has this theory why the lower matter clings to the monad and why the monad also clings to it. So you can just ponder or consider it. We're not supposed to accept it as it is, but this is an interesting thought that we might wish to consider. So she says that esotericism, or actually the entire process of spiritual evolution, is also a science of redemption. So the monad descended not because it wants to show off itself as being grand divine being, but because it also wants to purify and save the lower matter. And the lower matter itself has an elemental consciousness, which is sometimes different, right, from or opposite from what the monad or the divine spark wants. But they because of their oppositeness, they attract one another. So for example, I want to, for example, do service, but my physical body is lazy. So the physical elemental doesn't want to do anything, but somehow deep inside me, I want to serve. So somehow these two opposing energies are attracted to one another because opposites attract, like protons and electrons, they attract one another. But ultimately, we have to choose which one we have to follow. And eventually, it will be the monad that will succeed. But it might take a very, very long time. It might take several lifetimes to be able to do that. Similarly, for example, our astral body, for example, somebody hurt me or somebody said hurtful words to me. Sometimes it in my mind, I think that, this is she probably didn't say it. She didn't probably mean what she says. So I should just probably let it go. But the astral body has habits. So it will cling to this particular habit, even though you're thinking to yourself, I shouldn't feel bad. She doesn't even know me, or she's probably just mad. But why am I clinging to this? And then similarly, our mind. So, for example, I have a particular bias over something. And then I know that deep inside, I should keep an open mind. But at the same time, there's a conflict between there. And I just want to add that remember what Blavatsky mentioned, that there's a path, that quote, that there's a path that's thorny and it's difficult, but if you succeed, it will lead you to the place, to the heart of the universe. And if you fail, your effort to trek that path will actually help you to track the same path in the future life, but easier, because it will generate good karma that will make it easier. And that kind of reminds me, because in my theology class, because before I studied in a Catholic school from elementary to college, I remember my theology teacher, he tells me that there are certain saints who are born with a special kind of grace. That's why, even though from the womb of their mom, they already are inherently good, they don't have to struggle as much as we do. In my mind, I kind of feel that's not fair, because how come everybody has to struggle, but there are people who are blessed with this special kind of grace. And then when I studied theosophy, Blavatsky explains it this way, that these people are not special because God gave them a special gift or a special privilege. They have this particular grace um, because in the past life they already struggled with this kind of developing these virtues. So in this lifetime, from the womb itself, they already have these virtues, and they're only continuing what they already started in a previous life.
Mm. Wow, that's a good one. Thank you, Chris. And Medicate?
Actually, Chris already like told the main thing I wanted to say, but this do you wanted to?
Oh, yeah. So I think that, hello. So I think that the astral body tends to accumulate all these elementals, which are like ideas and feelings combined together. And then, as Chris said, they just stay. That conflict is never really resolved, so it just stays. But then at the same time, I would look at it from a J. Krishnamurti perspective, and I would say that, see, that forms our ego. All these elementals we collect are all our defenses and habits. Together, they form what we are. So until we look at the ego and break the ego, we're not going to be free of all that. All right.
Mm. Thank you. Oh, what's your name again? Sorry.
I'm Tisha.
Tisha.
Tisha, yeah.
Tisha. Okay. Thank you. That's a good one, Tisha.
She's a young
So,
Theosophist here in Adyar Lodge.
okay. Great to meet you. Okay, so I have a question for you. Okay. So it says, Krishnamurti says that until we look at the ego and break it apart, right? If not, we'll be forever slave to the elementals, right? Or the lower self, right? Or all the tendencies. So here comes the question: how do we break apart? How do we look at the ego?
I think we have to look at it first. So first, we have to acknowledge that this is something we do. I feel like we lack a general awareness of what we're really doing. We tell ourselves something. We have a narrative. Oh, yeah, see, this is the reason I'm doing that. But underneath, we're not looking at where that stems from and what emotion is actually causing it. And at least from what I've learned from Kay's whole process, it's you got to look at it and sit with it and be really honest with yourself. Be doubtful, be skeptical, question whether what you're saying is really what you feel on the inside. And when you look at it, you'll see the fallacy of it and it'll drop. And,
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think this is one of the good ways as well. There's something I believe and I practice as well, right? Really to doubt how or doubt the truthfulness of our perception, right? We a lot of times we give ourselves, we tell ourselves a lot of lies, right? To try to make ourselves feel better, right? As a person, right? And I think this kind of practice, I think there are two things to look at it, right? To look at, right? One is as you mentioned, is to be aware of the things that we have to contemplate and sit with to see if it is true, right? And so there is a gap here, right? Could you elaborate from seeing
Sure.
and being true to see if it's true to breaking away from it, right? Because a lot of times we could have a lot of mental acrobatics, right? We tell ourselves this and that. Intellectually, we could understand, right, the ethics, the things that we should do and we shouldn't do. But like what has Chris has mentioned, right? We understand, but the emotions has a little bit more control over
But
us.
I would say that we're sort of judging. So, like, if you take a habit, like, let's say somebody is addicted or something, they have an addiction to smoking or something like that, and they're trying to break that habit, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way they go about that is they would, just cultivate another habit. Say, I'm not going to. Yes, I've understood why it's wrong, but then they're not looking at the fact that they actually like that. They're not, if they watch their behavior there without judging themselves, just look at what you're doing, and stay there. But instead, people quickly jump and say, okay, I shouldn't. Then I'm going to make a habit not to do that. Or even for this simple thing, I don't want to procrastinate. Okay, I'm just not going to. You're just cultivating another elemental, but then this elemental remain dormant within the person, which is why a lot of people
Mm,
end up relapsing also. But if they just
mm,
for 1 minute don't judge yourself and look at what is happening within you, sit with, yes, this is what the person is doing. Yes, they're liking that. Oh, they're feeling a sense of pleasure out of that, or whatever they're getting out of it. If you stay with that and look at it, it'll drop automatically, is what I feel. It's sort of
mm,
Maybe it takes time until it totally drops, but I think Vincent How Jr. also gives like how the processing goes on. It might take several sessions,
Yeah.
but even one session will weaken it, even if you are not able to prove it right away. Yeah, but it's worth
mm,
to seize the self transformation. Yes.
mm. Yeah, I think it's good that Mary Kay brought up Brother Vic's methods, because really staying with that, right? You could actually see it in your physical body, the tension. Okay, maybe not see, right? You can feel it, right? Some kind of tension or shape or form of a different intensity as well. And then when we start to see it, and all these are actually blockages and things that we have encountered through our lives, and the blockages are there because we weren't brave enough to process and live with the emotion, right? Most of the time. So yeah, and another and there's something else as well that I've heard before, which is the objective of meditation as well, right?
If
What
I
I've
may just add
learned,
a little bit, Francis. Yeah.
yeah,
So just
yeah,
what Jisha, right? Jisha was mentioning. Yeah, it is about essentially trying to understand our conditioning, isn't it? So, so you cannot fight back a conditioning with another set of conditioning, because you are in a constant state of chaos, or let's say your parasympathetic, or no, sorry, your sympathetic nervous system is constantly on the go. So the first step would be then to acknowledge the conditioning. Just like that's what JK hints towards, that you should just sit and first just acknowledge the conditionings without really getting carried away with trying to fight them off, because that just puts you more and more sort of in a territory full of chaos and further away from your real state of being. So and even if we are to think of ourselves like when are we actually be able to contemplate the best, it's when we are in a state of calmness. That's when that means, from our nervous system point of view, it's our parasympathetic nervous system, and it's dominant. That's when we are not really in a state of chaos, and that's when we can actually reflect on things. But when we are constantly trying to, change things, then it doesn't really help. Like yeah, we are constantly reacting, and that's the problem. Like we're just conditioning ourselves even more. Like we are reacting because we don't want that, and then not wanting something or not wanting a certain behavior is then creating a negative impression. So but then the goal is to get free of impressions. So it's so that's where you're constantly in a state of flux, rather than just being and observing and just sort of acknowledging them first, and then slowly you get over them. But the more we fight, and I think that's what the Taoists say as well, it's the non-doing, right? It's like you don't try to do a lot, but but it's simply sit and let things be, and eventually you get over them.
mm. Oh, that's a good one. Thank you, Kieran. So the thing is, I think like, oops, my dad called just a minute. Sorry, my phone is connecting as well. Okay, so the thing is, so this works for the things that we actually understand, right? We know that like things. Call again. Uh, it works for things that we can have or we have awareness about, right? we have awareness for. And the thing is, anyways, give me 1 second, let me text my dad. Yep, sorry. So, where was I? So there are things. So how do we actually work on things that we are not aware of, but inherently is a conditioning, right? Because there are so many different layers of it. There are things that, for example, for myself, I didn't know that I was actually hard on myself, right? For a long time, until I realized, oh my gosh, I have been abusing myself. I was like pushing very hard, right? Not regarding about health and whatever. I just work super hard. And the thing is, of course, over the years, like the body, like symptoms of like let's say high blood pressure and things like that starts to catch up. So the thing is, I've heard through some talks or sharing about the key of meditation, the objective of meditation. It's not so much about just calming the mind, right? Or trying to train concentration or focus. It's not one, of course, those are the things that we should try to do. And it could also be some of the reasons why we started meditation in the first place. But what I understood was that meditation helped us to keep our mind off the things that we usually think about, so that we do not reinforce or defeat the elementals that is attached to us. And as long as we could keep our minds off all those things, right, our tendencies, things that we want to think about, right, the thinking behavior. So technically, just having a peace of mind over the time, the elementals will drop by itself off of us. Doesn't it make sense?
Yeah. This is a really interesting way to see it, because if you start meditating, all those elementals actually try to take over, try to come up. If you last night had seen some movie before going to sleep, you will remember like scenes of it, or you remember some things are coming into mind. So you have to just stay and let them pass by and so on. But I think it is you're practicing towards it, but I think it needs something more to totally drop off.
Yeah, I would say that wouldn't it just be a dormant elemental that's lying underneath, waiting for the soil and energy to just, when you think about it again,
Mm.
it crop up, right?
Sometimes I say,
Yeah.
I'm meditating and I remember, oh, I have to write email. Oh, I have to pay this bill. Or like I remember something important and you will come back to me when the meditation is over.
So the thing is, we will never know if the dormant ones will still be there, right? That's for sure. You're right. That's why meditation has to be consistent throughout our life, right? So it could be so dormant to the point that it will just fall off of us, and then maybe someone else will pick it up, right? Yeah, something along that lines. Who first, Leo or Hiran?
Leo goes first. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Reflecting on my own experience of dealing with addiction, for example, I there is one more point about like staying out of it for a while is also helpful in the sense of resting away from the battle with it. So it is also important to not like combining with what Francis mentioned, being too hard on the self and just keep on going at it again and going at it again, going at it again. Because the lower body may not be able to survive the ongoing struggle with any of the struggles in that sense. And it might not be helpful also because then, like what Kieran mentioned, that we are just going to end up being in this constant flux of the chaos. So then that staying away from it helps also in both ways, like what Francis mentioned, like maybe at some point of the time for my experience, there are some of the things that just fall off on its own. And I just don't need to revisit it anymore. And that is like, okay, that's very good. But then like when it is dormant, then it will come back again. Then there will be time that it will come back again. And that I feel that there is also like a practice of patience there. That like for something that is just too big on like to tackle at once, then there is the grace that's like, okay, I attempted, and then going back into what Chris mentioned, that's like every time we attempt, then it is just lessening a little bit by a little bit. So yeah, that's just what I want to contribute.
Thank you, Leo. Kiran.
Yeah, Francis, I very much align with what you had to say there, because a lot of times, we tend to think of meditation as just being in this, peaceful state where the mind is not chaotic. But that comes, after we have spent a few minutes into the meditation. It doesn't start right away, right? So thoughts will, as we all know, they keep coming, and our job is not really to fight with them, as to understand them. And when we are able to create that gap between who we are versus what's going on in the head, rather than contributing to what's going on, but just simply taking a step back and observing the field, we then get to know our own patterns very well, how the mind thinks. And a lot of times there are layers to it, because like what Mary Kay was saying here, that, oh, I need to write this email to someone, because those are things at the very top of our head. So those are the thoughts you're likely to get in the first few minutes of the meditation. Then, as you spend a few more minutes, you start getting like more, like thoughts or feelings that were suppressed for a few days and months, they start resurfacing. And then, sometimes if you sit in a meditation for an hour or so, you also start getting, some childhood memories popping up. So it's a way of sort of understanding our mind as well, how it all functions and our biases. For some people, it could be just something as simple as going for a walk. Sometimes if they're not contributing actively to the thought, like mindful walking or walking meditation, or for some people it could just be journaling. But yeah, it depends on what really there are many tools for one to get in a state of a meditative mind that an individual can decide for themselves. But other than that, yeah, I think it is a great tool, and if consistently done, it really helps us understand our own mind very well. And that's how we even learn about our conditionings, our patterns, our unexpressed emotions. And a lot of times we have a lot to say, a lot to express, but it just remains sort of, trapped into the system. But then meditation, because it just calms down your whole body, a lot of these things surface, and it's okay for them to go out, because that's how you kind of get rid of those things, because maybe you were fighting those emotions for a long time, and they are still somewhere in your psyche. They are dominating the way you perceive the world. They are dominating how you interact with people around you, which you don't always recognize right away. So yeah, I think it also happens to be a nice healthy outlet for a lot of unexpressed things, if be it pain, be it pleasure, be it love, be it frustration, whatever that might be. But once it's out of the system, then you just sort of feel more unburdened by what had been. Sorry, long answer.
Oh, that's good. Thank you, Kiran. Chris.
Yeah, so I was thinking also that um it might not be humanly possible to be totally free from all conditionings and from all of the elementals, right? I mean, it's part of life. It's part of what makes us human. Maybe if we're adepts or we're devas, maybe they have a different struggle, they have a different challenge, they have a different developmental stage that they need to undergo, which they have already surpassed the challenges that we have as human beings. But as human beings, I think as long as we are incarnated as human beings, we will always have conditionings. The only thing is that with our study of theosophy meditation, we have tools so that we're able to detach and we're able to somehow distance ourselves from being controlled by these conditionings. And also, I was thinking that isn't the search for truth also what gives meaning to life? Because if we know everything already, then life's kind of boring, right? I mean, a scientist conducts experiments, they conduct research because they want to find out something. They may want to find out a new drug. They may want to find out the cause of a disease. They may want to find out something about nature, about a particular phenomenon. But it's that drive to find the truth that actually
Mm,
gives them somehow it drives them towards life. Similarly, a philosopher would think of problems, of paradoxes, of philosophical questions, etc., because they're trying to figure out the meaning of life. And it's also would be boring if a philosopher would say, "Oh, I know everything about life itself." It doesn't give that push anymore. And also, a theologian would say that if they already know everything, then they're wouldn't they be at par with God at whatever form they would say, and they would no longer need religion because of that. So I was thinking that um, as long as we're humans, part of the fun of life is not knowing everything. And when we have an idea or we have a concept or we have a belief, we should always try to think back, does the map accurately describe the reality? Does the map accurately describe the terrain? Or is it something different? Because at a point it could be like, for example, in ancient times they thought that the world was flat, and for them that was true. But eventually, because of advances in science and technology, we found out that it's not really flat, and we have to adjust. The territory will not change because of the map has to adjust to the territory. So I'm thinking that aside from meditation, we should also have like journaling, reflecting on others, and we should also have like friends who will not be afraid to tell us right in front of our faces that I think you're wrong, I think your beliefs are not true. And we should have that openness in our mind to consider that, well, I could be wrong, I could be right, I could recheck I could take a step back and then figure out, really, am I right or am I wrong?
mm. Thank you, Chris. I think this one is something that I've learned for myself as well. Never be too sure. Just and keep it there, right? Who's next? Is it you? Leo.
Yeah, I just want to comment along the lines with Christopher about the meaning of life, because I think that your microphone.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because I think that the urge to seek the meaning of life, or the urge to find out who we are, or what I am or who I am, is the urge from the true self. And when we talk about we want to know everything, we want to feel so sure that I know everything, and sometimes we say that we are afraid of the unknown, we don't like the uncertainty, that is exactly the nature of the mind, which is the lower mind or the lower self. So the mind itself, the nature of it, it doesn't really like anything that is out of its control. It likes something certain, clear, known. But the true self is the urge, just like the universe is a creation. We always seek to evolve. We always seek to find out, to create something. So it's just like what Christopher said, there's always like two things happening at the same time, the true self and the lower self of the mind. It's conflicting, but at the same time, somehow it's attracting to each other. And it really belongs, like really our choice, what we're going to do. I found myself sometime in a situation that I felt very uncomfortable because it's uncertain. I don't know what's going to happen next. But at the same time, I feel the excitement because maybe that's life. There could be something that I've never known before. It could be bad, it could be good, but definitely there would be like an experience. So it's just the way that we shift the mindset, I think.
Thank you, Leo. Kiran.
Yeah, I'll just briefly add something. I think, yeah, what, totally aligns with what Christopher said there. We wouldn't exist without conditioning anyway. Physically speaking, our bodies are conditioned to exist in a certain way. So it doesn't mean that today, if I start walking backwards, I'm overcoming my conditionings. That's just going to make me a very, a human being who will find it very difficult to function in this world. But I think on the psychological front, I think it's not so much about deconditioning ourselves, because to decondition is also conditioning, but it is more about two tendencies that we sometimes unconsciously get into. One is hyper-identification, and the second one is self-denial. Hyper-identification comes into play when we identify with these conditions as our personality, and if things are not in a certain way, we are overreactive or we're not happy about it. Second is when you realize that none of this matters, and that's where the nihilistic perspective comes into play, and then you start denying yourself. So, or you say, oh, these conditionings are bad, and therefore you start denying some of your basic needs as a human being to function in a healthy way. So I think these tendencies are something that we just need to be aware of. So conditionings inherently are not bad. Of course, they can help you either do good things or bad things. So that you have to figure out for yourself, because in this world that we live in, it's a dualistic world. And there is also always going to be a carrot and stick approach. You do good, you get good. You do bad, you probably will get bad. So you can get both penalized and incentivized based on your actions. But psychologically speaking, it's more about recognizing that these conditionings don't define me. But yes, I have a body. On a physical level, the body needs to be in a certain condition for me to function in a healthy, normal way. That's all.
Wow, well said. Thank you, Kiran. Mary Kay or Trisha.
Yes, I very much like what Kiran was just mentioned. And I was just thinking that actually, yes, we have the conditioning. As long as we have a human body, we need to feel hunger, then we need to eat. When we are very sleepy, then we need to get rest, because we need to take care of this working horse well, like Krishnamurti says. But I think the idea is not to get rid of the conditioning, but change it. Like Kiran mentioned, we have tendencies of doing some things rather than the other. So to change, if I consciously notice that this conditioning is not good, like the smoking, then I could change it to something that is more beneficial in the long run for the body. Have another habit, because how the habits or the conditionings comes, you repeat some kind of thing, some kind of action, or
Reconditioning yourself.
yeah, exactly. You reconditions, you get better and better conditions, and at the same time you have to be honest, like you said, aware what is it really like serving me. Sometimes some greasy or delicious food that is not so good, but sometimes it makes me so happy. So I cannot force myself to always eat, for the exam time, I allow my body to have everything, drink and food, as long as it works and help me to do the exams. And after that, I will go on with my diets or whatever. But like I have to make my elementals happy, so they allow to give energy for my higher part of, yeah. And this is one of the
Mm,
things.
I
Well,
would
thank
say,
you. It's a good one.
I have
Yeah.
a question, because Kiran said that there's no deconditioning, but I would say, like, now if you take, for instance, walking backwards, that's reconditioning yourself. But there is a sense of you need basic, the human body has basic activities, so nobody denies that. You have to eat, as she said, you have all of that. But you can decondition yourself let's say somebody has a extravagant life, so they party, or you can decondition yourself in those areas by looking at it and allowing it to let go. Just letting go of it. You can decondition in that sense.
Well, maybe it's reconditioning, because if a person happens to live a hedonistic lifestyle, then they will probably just look for healthier alternatives. If they are deep within themselves of hedonistic nature, then it's very likely that they will still do those things, but they'll just try to go for healthier alternatives, something that gives them the same sort of satisfaction.
Yeah, they're
Maybe
deconditioning. Yeah.
well, yeah, exactly. So, for instance, people, who are, let's say, or totally disconnected from something like a meditation and all, but they would fancy stuff like drugs or maybe mushrooms and things like that. But when they are able to get to a state that gives them the same sort of pleasure without the economic and physical cost, then they get hooked onto that. But it's what's happening here is that their personalities are essentially craving for something of that sort. In some cases, it's a coping mechanism. In some cases, it's just that maybe the desire to feel loved or the desire to feel just calm and centered. It is in them, but they just didn't have those tools. But when they get those tools, they get into all sorts of practices and they unlock a different dimension within themselves, and they don't feel the need for any substance abuse anymore. Of course, it's easier said than done, but it has happened to a lot of people, and they have gone totally sober just because of a couple of experiences in their lives. So, but it's not that psychologically that their brains are not looking for that dopamine hit. It is still doing that. It's just that doing it in a much more healthier way. I'll give you my personal example. A lot of times when I'm sorry if I'm taking too much time, but I'll be quick. But a lot of times I used to kind of sacrifice my sleep for a lot of work-related projects and stuff. And I thought, it's okay, it doesn't really matter, like when you're young and fine, you don't really, sense the damage of it so much. But yeah, a few years down the line, I started feeling burnt out with the same tendencies, because you thought you can easily handle those things, but it's not always the case. At some point, your nervous system will backfire, and that so you get pushed for looking for healthier alternatives, either by choice or your own body backfiring at you through health reasons or other problems here.
Mm. Oh, thank you, Kiran. Yeah, I just make a last comment before we close. I think the last round of comments were really good, right? I think it started with Tisha saying that um the part about if you want to try and quit something, right, procrastination or smoking, for example, trying not to do it is not really a solution. And that's exactly true. I think I'm sure some of you might have heard about this statement saying that your brain doesn't know what is yes or no statements, a negative or a positive statement, right? When you say I don't want to smoke, you will just think about smoking, for example. You will not understand what is I don't want or I want. It will just it doesn't recognize don't, right? So I think similarly when we are trying to fight like things that is not physical, like drinking or by actions, let's say we talk about trying to not feed procrastination, for example. I think the act of trying to resist it is thinking about the procrastination, we are focusing on it, and you want to be away from it, right? And that is the center of focus. That is probably why that act of resisting will be feeding the elementals of procrastination just by that. And then that's where I think Leonardus was talking about how just don't even think about it. And sometimes it's really difficult. Oh yeah, I speak from my own experience because I used to be a very heavy smoker. And then one day I just stopped and I never continue again. But of course, in between the years, I did try and stop. But I think when the more I try, the heavier I smoke. Like when I bounce back, it's just like diet as well. And And one day when I start to think about my life, why did I smoke? Like, why did I smoke? Like, why do I have to get myself into situations that is so uncomfortable emotionally that I have to take something to numb my emotions? Right, that was the statement that came up. I was sitting with myself. I started to think, why would I actually destroy my own body by trying to make other people happy, and then I myself feel very, very emotionally affected or uncomfortable? And that moment on, I stopped smoking. Just that moment, right? Because I knew that it was a problem deeper than just the act itself. I think that's also something what Kieran has mentioned, that really triggered this thing, right? We all seek to be loved. We all seek to be validated in some way, shape, or form, because somewhere in our mind or our being, we feel that we are not complete, right? We need something to complete us or to feel whole. And then, through all different life experiences, we have been taught or shown that we are not capable of being loved or valued. And then we take actions on, for example, food, right? Very savory food, spicy food, at least for myself, or drinking or smoking and all this kind of stuff, so that I can focus on those and not focus on the uncomfortable emotions, which of course over the years it becomes blockages, and it will manifest or express itself as physical sickness and illness. I think all this is really wonderful. It's like it's really like rounding everything up that I've been studying as well over the years. And I think one of you also mentioned as well, is to focus on, let's say for example, smoking is an activity that creates dopamine, for example. And then you could actually do some kind of reconditioning for a healthier choice of dopamine source, for example. And that works as well for um, habits. For example, habits of reactions, emotional reactions, right? Sometimes there are trigger words that comes and you're like, oh, you just go ahead. And then after a few moments, you start to regret. And that's something that I've learned in my lodge, is that we can try to focus on the opposite virtue of that thing you are trying to um, not reinforce, right? I think sometimes the opposite it's not so straightforward, right? Opposite sometimes is just that, I just don't want to be depressed. I just don't want to be sad. But that's not opposite. Opposite is more like maybe hatred or sad. The opposite is love, for example. And then we could actually read about it, right? As what Christopher mentioned, it's not so much about just the meditation aspect, right? We have to be able to study about it as well, and also try and be of service with that virtue or that value as a motivation at the start. And then after which, over a long period of time, it becomes part of your nature instead of just an external motivation, which can die, right? There are times that we start to do something and then it just burns out and disappears. Yeah, I think this is a really good session. Thank you so much. Kieran, then you'll get the last comment.
Sure. I just wanted to add a little point there when you mentioned procrastination. So I think be it procrastination or any set of habits that we have, I think what matters a lot is our relationship with it. For example, with procrastination, does it make you feel guilty if you procrastinate? Or when you smoke, does it make you feel bad about yourself somewhere deep within? And as long as you have those sort of negative relationships subconsciously, it always makes it more difficult for you to overcome it, because for some people, when they are not associating with something either in a positive or negative way, it doesn't matter to them when they drop a habit. When it comes to reconditioning, as you know, as they say in a lot of books around habit forming, it should be easy, obvious, and rewarding. So as long as you can find an alternative which is easy, obvious, which you can see, and rewarding, that you get the same sort of experience, then of course it's easy for you to then recondition yourself in a healthier way. Yeah, that's all.
Oh, nice roundup. Thank you, Kieran. Last statement, there's a good one.
Same
Okay.
flying along K, actually. Sorry to interrupt. But that's the
Yeah.
same. K says, you should not judge your elemental and what you're going through. He says you should not have cast judgment upon it. Oh, this is good, or what I'm doing is bad. Because if you can just watch it for what it is, as you said, then it's a lot easier to let go of things.
Well said. It's always the part about pure awareness, I think, is what the Krishna Buddha would call it, pure awareness, and really observe. It's really difficult, but we will be there someday. Someday, okay, we will reach there someday. All right, thank you, everyone. We can have we need a 1 minute silence. We can do a 30-second silence just to get it all in, right? All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for today. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Yes, good night.
Thank you.
What time is
Thank
it
you.
in Australia right now?
10:16 p.m.
Wow. Okay, good night. Good night.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care,
See ya.
everyone. Ciao, ciao. See you very soon.
Good
Ciao.
night.
Bye.
Ciao.